Steven, I think you are on mute. As
I thought I'd unmuted it. The problem is we can mute and unmute each other's mics. Let's try that again. Take two. We are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to AWS Made Easy, episode number 70, where we are experts in AWS, but not necessarily AV production. I'm Stephen Barr, joined by Raul Subramaniam, and also we're lucky today to have Jeff Barr, who is Chief Evangelist of AWS, and also on a personal note, my dad, and also Marcos Ortiz. He is a data engineer at X Team, and he's the creator of the AWS Graviton Weekly newsletter, which you should definitely subscribe to. It's an invaluable resource for keeping up with everything Graviton. Also reflecting, this is our first 3-continent live stream, so that's a pretty cool milestone to celebrate episode number 70.
Awesome.
Congrats on hitting 70. I still remember watching you get ready for the first one and the number of different moving parts you had to have connected together and working properly.
Well, we're still learning, still working on that system, but we've got, I think we started with an iPhone on a stick, and now we've got lights and cameras and all kinds of cool devices. It's really good to be here. So how's everyone doing today?
You know, I'm doing great here. I'm all just about geared up for reInvent. Last Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we do this thing we call speed storming. And basically for 9 hours a day, we have 15-minute back-to-back meetings with 3 per hour and a 15-minute break. And each team basically has about 10 minutes to tell us what they are building and what they plan to launch. And then we ask them questions for the last couple of minutes. We take a bunch of notes, and then myself and all the other bloggers, we express our interest in what things we kind of light us up a little bit and what we think we'll be able to do a good job on writing. We're now in this fun period where we've got all that set up. We're just waiting for the dust to settle a bit, and we all settle, kind of rationalize all the assignments. So we're all fired up to work, but not quite having all the info in hand in another day or so, and I think I'll be fully revved up. It's not like I have a shortage of work, but I'm looking at my wall, and I've got 47 days to reinvent, and I know there's a massive amount of work, but I can't jump in on all of it today. Hopefully tomorrow.
That number is a bit unnerving.
Yeah.
Marcos, how have you been?
Actually, very, very, very good. Very busy this morning, but happy to have a chat with you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Congratulations on, you just shipped newsletter number 57. So when we last spoke, we were on, I think, live stream number 22. I'll put the link in the description for anyone's feeling nostalgic. And and you were just starting the newsletter. We were talking about, I think the C7G was just announced.
Yeah,
so that was a pretty exciting time. And so we're hoping that the part of this show, we're going to catch up on the world of Graviton and find out what's new.
Yeah. Love to see your growth as well, the show, because we're putting a lot of content out there. So also see both entities growing.
Well, I heard this stat on, I think someone was talking about Spotify. They said that the majority of podcasts make it to episode 1, 2, and 3. And then there's a barrier at 20. So everyone's like, you got to hit 20. And then it's kind of, that's the 2 thresholds. Make it past 3, make it past 20.
Yeah. Getting into a rhythm to do anything like that's like a lot of work, and it's a lot harder than people expect to do these kinds of things. To just say, rain or shine, happy or not, I'm just going to make it happen. But there's sometimes just value in just being in that rhythm and just letting it just motivate you and pull you forward.
I couldn't agree more. I'm pleasantly surprised that we are at episode 70. We started it off literally as, okay, why don't we just give this a shot and see how it goes? And now we are 70 episodes, and it's just quite incredible.
Well, and I don't know if you saw, we started a hackathon series on Gen AI, and we've been using our previous transcripts to create a AWS advice bot. We call it the Raul bot. And so now we hope to, in future hackathons, put that online, and you can just ask your cost optimizations, and it can use the collected wisdom of prior episodes combined with some Bedrock and produce hopefully some useful advice.
Yeah. So this was basically a RAG implementation on Bedrock to parse through and answer questions based on all the data collected from all the episodes that we've done with all the guests. So there's just so much amazing information in there that it'd be great to just ask a bot that question and get, natural language answers to those. So really excited about that. I think we got a first iteration of that going with a limited data set. And we're going to load it all up in the next episode and see how it performs.
That sounds amazing. Now, Rahul, at some point you're going to probably hit this phenomenon that happens to me is that, I write all these blog posts and I deeply immerse myself in the topic while I'm writing about it. And I at that point, as I'm finishing up the final draft, is the point when I will know the absolute most I ever will about that subject. And then I turn to the next one and the next one. And a few years later, I don't really specifically remember writing about any particular launch or subject, no matter how amazing they were. And then I'll do a quick web search to learn something new about it. And I'll land on my own content. And it's kind of strange. It's like, oh, wow, I used to actually be smart back then and I knew all this stuff. And then you just kind of like, whoa, I hope I can write as well today as I did 5 years ago. But it is fascinating when you just go in depth in volume over a particular subject for a long time. And suddenly you try to learn more and you realize that you are the person who knows the most about it.
I have had my share of that. I've been in this organization for 21 years now. And so every now and then someone will contact me about some context from a decade or more ago. And they'd want to know, what that is. And I'd basically go in to figure out, what content I had from back then. And like you said, it would be a document that I would have written, from 10, 15 years ago. I wouldn't remember anything about it at all. I read the whole thing and it'd be like reading someone else's document, and then you'd think, I think I could have done better with this documentation every single time.
It's a little bit scary though to think that you wonder if a malicious Gen AI could convince you that you've done things you hadn't, that because it would be able to write in your own style and could possibly convince you that you wrote something, and that could be a little bit unnerving.
I actually think that, but the flip side of that is really that there are a lot of people who message me on LinkedIn, message me on other forums, and would really love to get certain pieces of information that I haven't had the time to write up or I haven't had the time to discuss, but I have some internal document that's kind of half-baked and written up, and I'm just trying to find more, hours in a day to be able to complete a bunch of those things. And if I could have that completed faster, if I could have, my perspective be written up, where I can validate it and then, put it into a RAG-like system, then it becomes more accessible to a lot more people very quickly without me becoming the bottleneck. Because again, I'm always bound by the hours in a day, and this might be a better way to reach a larger number of people.
I identify with that, and I get questions regularly from inside and outside folks that say, I know I could look this up, but I'm really sure so let me ask you instead, which is both a compliment and a real drain on my time. And I've almost wondered, what if I never answered anything privately? And anytime I got any question, there wasn't a customer thing with some account or personal information, every answered question just got dropped onto my FAQ. I actually do have a public FAQ that I haven't updated for a really, really long time. But having something like that, hopefully people will find it and then use that as their the first source of answers. And sometimes I think, is there a way you could actually eliminate email and private messaging and just be very, very public in your professional life? Would that actually be the right way to reduce some of this weird scalability?
Well, join us for the next.
Sorry, go ahead.
Join us for the next hackathon, and we can make this bot. And as good questions get submitted to the bot, they can create the FAQ kind of organically, and you can just check the answer. Oh yeah, that seems like something I would have said.
I like that idea. I actually would like to join.
And Marco, same with you with the Graviton.
Built stuff with code for a while, and I've been building a lot of my recent 3D projects have actually been generated by code, and it kind of got me back into I do like to write stuff, and I like to debug it, and I actually like enjoy the whole like put it up on GitHub and view the diffs and do pull requests to myself. And it's like I kind of got out of that, but now that I'm doing it, I'm like, this is actually fun again.
Yeah. So Jeff, I have an open offer. Anytime you want to do a 3D printing hackathon like that, let me know.
Okay.
I'd be on board for doing all of that stuff as well. But yeah, this is just such a fascinating time with all the Gen AI stuff. There's just so much to learn and so many interesting.
I think so. I need to learn how to generate patterns. So I've been working on printing on fabric, and I've made these ridiculously cool patterns here that they're simultaneously solid and flexible. They're the craziest, interesting things I've ever done. And I started out by hard coding it, and I started just writing a bunch of open SCAD code, to generate them. And the same basic piece of code can also make neat stuff like this. And by playing with the shapes, the textures, the nodes, it's really fun. I just started yesterday experimenting with magnets inside too. That's my next frontier.
That might be. I was looking at that as a mechanism of joining these pieces together and creating an array.
I just made these two pieces last night.
Nice.
All right. Well, I've posted the link to your repo in the chat, so if anyone's interested, and then all right. So there we go. That is there. Have a look. Submit pull requests. And we should do yet another series on like a maker type of series, using Gen AI, using other AWS tools to supplement some maker capabilities, using OpenSCAD. That would be a lot of fun. Well, I wanted to talk about what brings this group together today for this 3-content live stream. So, Marcos, you're based in Peru. And then, Dad, you just got back from Peru and from Chile for the AWS Community Day in Chile. Maybe, Marcos, start with you. What was the AWS Community Day like? What was your perspective on it?
To be honest, when I shot with several people we are based here in Peru, they are very surprised because the community here is very strong. Specifically for women, we have a chat is called a group called AWS Girls Peru, where a lot of women in the space they get together, they learn together here, and I know that Jeff saw a lot of excitement in the community here, a lot of people in the events as well. So I think the community is not only for focus on AWS, focus on the open source communities as well. So it's very, very strong.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Well, I guess, Dad, I'll let you have the next one. So what's our connection to Peru? Why is that specifically meaningful for us?
Yeah, so first, let me 100% confirm everything that Marcos just said. So, of course, my wife, your mom, Stephen, she is from Peru, and she left when she was 16 to come to the U.S. In pursuit of, she wanted to pursue her education, and she wanted to marry an American guy with blonde hair and blue eyes. So she got the education, but the blonde hair didn't quite work out. But it was super, super fun to be able to go back, not just to her continent or her country, but to actually be in the neighborhood where she had spent a lot of time as part of Peru called Miraflores, a really nice part of Peru, and to really close this big life loop where she'd grown up there and had all kinds of great, wonderful expectations of what her life could be, and then to get back and to be part of the community, the AWS community, but also part of the community in Peru. And one thing that was actually really awesome, as Marcos mentioned, there's a really, really strong female-led user group in Peru, and it was really neat to watch them all interact and to hear their stories and to hear the one thing I really loved was they saw tech and cloud and AWS as an incredible ramp to a better future for themselves and for their families, and they were so energetic and so eager to learn and to network and to share their stories. And they also were very encouraging and welcoming. It was a group that was an open group, just like the more the merrier. We're going to encourage you all to be here and be part of our group. And it was like, wow, this is just a super, super positive force in what they're going to be doing in Peru going forward.
That sounds really awesome. I have to admit, I am quite ignorant about the demographics of Peru, especially as it relates to the cloud and AWS and technology in general. My exposure has primarily been on the Indian subcontinent side of things, where the whole story started off with being SIs for US and European companies, and kind of that kind of brought in the technology revolution over here. So I'd love to hear from both of you, Marcos, since you live there, and Jeff, from your experience there, or from the AWS standpoint. What does the demographic look like? Like, what's the exciting things that are happening? What does growth look like over there?
Actually, that's a very interesting question, because we have a good two groups here in the country when we're talking about technology. There is one group that the motto is is if works, don't touch it. Okay, that group doesn't want to innovate. That group don't want to try new things. Fortunately, there's a larger group of many people, but they want to try new things, want to innovate, want to, and more importantly, Peruvians are very open to share the knowledge, right? So that's why the community is so strong here. There is one post from Raul Hugo. He's from Peru. He's a Amazonian, but he's from Peru. He wrote a very good summary of growth of the community here since the beginning. When you read all that, you'll feel the same, because everyone is hoping to share the knowledge. That's why, for example, the female group is so strong, because it's not only for them, it's only for everyone to share the knowledge. And I saw the growth of the community here.
So I have many times in the past flown across the country to speak to a user group of 30 or 40 people, and it's always worthwhile to me, because user groups are the most engaged, passionate fans, and there's lots of kind of audiences, but people go to user groups because they truly want to be there, and they want to learn on their own. So I've just always had this just like affection for user groups. And I honestly, when I accept invitations, I never ask about like, well, how big of an audience are you going to get? And like to try to make some value judgment of like, is it big enough to make the trip worthwhile? If it's a user group, I will be there. And so I didn't have any actual expectation for the size of the audience in Peru or Chile. I got there, and we were in this really awesome university auditorium setting. That was the Catholic University of Peru. Was very wonderful hosts for the event there. I think that auditorium seated about 900 people. All the seats were full, and they're still trying to get the final metrics, but they believe there were easily another 1,000 plus outside that were listening on a stream that couldn't get in. So to get 2,000 people to show up on a Saturday when they've got when they could just be doing the rest of their life, but to them the most important thing was to get to learn and to meet and to do something awesome in this space is like a real compliment to them that they made that, I think, really good choice. I hate to sound ageist, but this was an early career crowd in a lot of cases. These were folks that were just getting started in their cloud career. Now sometimes there were some that had another kind of a career, tech or otherwise, for a while, but they said, I'm going to retrain, I'm going to reskill myself, and I'm going to move forward in the cloud. But regardless of their biological age or their career age, it was positive energy, it was enthusiasm, it was just wow, we have this awesome opportunity here in front of ourselves, and our personal goal is to grab it by the tail and make the absolute most of it that that we possibly can. This was the same energy I saw in both of the countries, and it just so fun to meet all these folks and to hear their individual stories and to hear what they were up to. To me, the best contrast was I still remember being really early career when I was in my 20s and I was living outside of Washington D.C. It was like it was that line from Star Wars. It was like you're like the farthest you can possibly be from the bright center of the universe. When you're just in the US, but in Washington, D.C., there was no tech community. And everybody at that point was like, if you want to do something, you need to get to Silicon Valley somehow. And that was kind of the prevailing kind of model for quite some time was, okay, you're somewhere else, but you want to be in tech, find a way to get to Silicon Valley. But now we see people all over the world that are innovating in place, which is probably a lot healthier for all concerned.
Yeah. So just following up on that. Sorry, go ahead, Marcos.
Yeah. One thing we need to mention is a shout out to Carlos Cortez,
yes,
Andres Cervantes, all the 50, more than 50 volunteers, more than 80 speakers. So they organize an amazing event. So shout out to the whole community. Absolutely. Because they are the heroes here.
Yeah, amazing event with so much content. They had all the content. They of course had the attendees. They had partner exhibits. They had a deep racer track that was set up. They had all of the trimmings, everything you need to have a successful event.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So I was going to follow up with a question just to understand Peru and Chile a little bit more. So. And I'll draw parallels with what I know of India, right? So in India, the whole technology revolution started with offshoring, where a lot of work came in from the US and Europe into India, and that kind of helped bootstrap a revolution in technology where people found not only an escape from whatever situation they were in via technology into a better life, into a better setup. But over a period of time, that slowly, evolved into local firms starting to, set up their own technology firms, innovating locally, building all of that up. And then once COVID happened, then it almost felt like there was a switch in the world where no matter which company you work for, where in the world, you could still actually reside wherever you pleased in whichever community that you belong to. Like I moved back to India and live here, but you're then able to contribute locally to the community, yet you're able to bring in a lot of the perspectives that are global in nature to the local community and help in whatever way you can. So how's the transition in these geographies been with regards to, say a parallel timeline or a parallel story?
With the caveat that my sample size is very, very small, I would say that I saw all of the above. I met multiple representatives and owners and senior folks from consulting companies that were addressing both the local market, where the local market, I think we could, for a lot of the companies in Peru and Chile, the local market is like the Spanish-speaking part of South America. So basically everywhere but Brazil, and usually because that's Portuguese-speaking, they'll have a little bit of a separate way to deal with that. But also certainly enterprises. There's a lot of enterprises that are adopting cloud there. And I met startups that are building for both local markets and are looking to go global as well. One thing I found quite interesting was that there are so many different countries in South America that are Spanish speaking that there was a lot of country to country mobility. It was fascinating to hear the number of people that were saying, well, I was born in Argentina, for example, and then I came to Peru in search of a better career, or I'm from Chile, but I'm here in Peru, or vice versa. Certainly it was, and a little bit of economic necessity, but also of just like great opportunities for them that they've got a language that works in a lot of different places, and that their tech skills are welcomed in a lot of different locations as well. So that was quite interesting to hear, and that amount of flexibility, I think, bodes really, really well for the future for them.
Yeah, I feel the same because I'm not Peruvian. I'm Cuban, so I'm an example for that. So I moved here to Peru looking for new opportunities, especially for the work. I feel the same with Jeff because I work with so many people, not only for Peru, my organization. When I came here, so the same. There is a lot of stuff that we're building right now locally in the country. Actually, there are so many conferences right now working for to grow the startup community here. One thing that I saw, for example, I admire from Peruvians. Many of them want to study abroad, and they come to the country to keep building the country. So they have the motto in the mind that we need to return to our country to build a better Peru. So that's very good for, because I saw so many examples for this. So it's always awesome to see in life, real life, all that.
I saw the same. In fact, I spoke to several people who had done their undergraduate education in Peru or Chile and then had gone elsewhere for further education. But then they generally had this model that said, I need to come back and contribute to the prosperity of my own country.
Yep.
Oh, we have a comment from the audience. Amazing events in Peru and Chile. And thank you, Odina. Thank you for watching the stream. We really appreciate the comment. That's really cool. I'm looking at the community day roster. We had some pictures up earlier from what the events were like. And Marcos, that's a really interesting perspective. So what are the local startups to watch?
Oh, there are so many here because there are some good stories about this, because you can see, for example, Campista is very popular story. Kulki, Grejana. There are so many, for example, so many investors focus in the tech community and the startups, the e-commerce as well. Payments is a huge problem here they want to solve. So many good stories. Actually, I love one of them is a beer. It's called Barbarian beer. There is a. I need to shout out this podcast because this is a very good podcast. It's called Era Digital or Digital Era. It's hosted by Diego Raceto. They interview a lot of entrepreneurs here in the country, Chile, Argentina, Spain. So you need to, if you want to know about more of the country, you need to listen to this podcast. Of course, it's Spanish. That's the one. They have a lot of stories here for the entrepreneurs, not only from Peru, so also the whole Latin American community. This is very, very good podcast if you want to know more about the stories, about how they build the business from the ground up. So this is a very good place to know all that.
Awesome. I've posted the link in the comments to their YouTube channel, and it looks like they're also on Apple, on Spotify. They've got Instagram. So thank you for that reference. We definitely will check that out. And that's really, thank you. That's really cool. I'm looking forward to learning more from there. And it's really interesting, like you said, there's venture capital, there's government initiatives, right? That's all part of the startup ecosystem in both Peru and in Chile as well.
Indeed.
I heard.
One I would want to quick shout out is that Odina, who left that comment, she was one of the organizers of the event in Chile, and was an incredibly good event, also held on a university campus, and we were right there in the middle of the campus, and I was lucky enough to she actually was at reInvent last year, and I think she was one that extended me this invitation that turned into this wonderful trip. I met the AWS girls from Chile last year at last year's reInvent. And they're an absolute, an amazing force for good. To talk to them and to hear their stories and to see how they support each other and encourage each other to push forward and to learn. And it was like, wow, this is when you can kind of go back in history after something amazing has happened. You say, how and why did this happen? These female-led user groups in these countries are going to have been an incredible contributor to not just to the success of cloud, that's the secondary thing, but to the prosperity and the overall like goodness of all these individuals and their families. And it's clear that they are understanding this, where they've said, a tech education is something well worth pursuing. If we have to fight for it, we're going to do it. And we're going to work so hard. We're going to learn these things. We are going to, I was so impressed by the drive towards certifications. Was one of the really interesting things to hear how hard people are working to earn their certifications was super, super cool. And then just this incredible variety of different ways they were putting them to use, and then creating social media around what they did. And I always can tell people, if you are learning something new, the cheat code is you learn something new, you take some good notes, you capture your learning process, and then you share it, and you can almost get double value out of the content, out of your learning journey, if you document it and then share it so someone else can benefit from it as well. And great to see that they are all able to do that.
Oh, that's fabulous. So, Jeff, what is the footprint of AWS look like across Latin America?
Let me find one of my slides just to make sure I don't accidentally misrepresent.
You know what? I think I've got that right here.
Oh, yes, that slide right there. Okay, quicker on the draw. Okay, I was going to go search through my work docs to find that, but there you go. So we have an AWS region in Brazil that we opened in 2011. We've got CloudFront edge locations throughout the continent. We've got local zones currently in 3 countries, and then 2 more that have been announced as well. We've got AWS offices. I visited the offices both in Chile and Peru, and was able to meet with colleagues and then customers in both of those. And we've got the whole complement of skills and job roles you might find in any of these field offices, from the country manager, account managers, tech support, solution architects, technical account managers, all of the important roles that our customers can turn to in order to get local help.
So for our listeners who don't know, just a quick definitions. So a region has to have multiple availability zones, but then what's a local zone?
So a local zone is basically a smaller deployment of AWS. That when you think of building a region is a very long-term project where we have to work with local authorities to get land and permits and power agreements and all kinds of things that can often take years and years to work through that process, because there are multiple availability zones. We need to have multiple physical facilities within the country. And that can be a very long process. And we've had so many customers saying we need AWS locally in our country sooner rather than later. So the local zones are basically a smaller individual availability zone that starts out at a much more reasonable size footprint than building multiple buildings to get started, with the idea that we can very quickly scale it up as we need more capacity in a given country. The local zone typically has a smaller set of services. So it'll generally have a set of compute and storage services and container services that are the ones that the customers in that local area actually need. And then one of the ways we make the local zone efficient is that part of AWS is the behind the scenes operations, the systems that control the actual services that you use. So if you're like using EC2 and you do a run instances call to launch a new instance, that API call goes to a part of AWS called the control plane, which is doing all the stuff behind the scenes to track the available resources. And when you say, I want to run an instance, find an available one and set it up for you and launch it and assign it to you. With the local zones, the control plane doesn't reside in the zone. It resides in a parent region. So each local zone is attached to a particular region. And so your API calls actually go to the parent region, not to the local zone. But it's another way to get AWS power closer to customers.
Okay, so with a local zone, you can still meet, say, data locality laws, right? So there's not data, like say if you have EBS volumes in a local zone, that data is staying in Peru. So say if you're working with a Peruvian company that has a policy that the data stays in Peru, then you can use the Peruvian local zone, and that will meet that legal requirement, even though there's maybe API traffic, but that's not data. That's
Exactly. So the idea is that there are certain applications where the storage and the processing is either by preference or by regulation. It's needs to stay in the particular country, and so local zones are a way that our customers can meet that need.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
And that feels like a fairly large footprint. How is it? So I think you said earlier, Brazil has a larger share of Latin American, I guess, usage, data center allocations, and so on. Is it just population, or is there any other demographic characteristic?
I actually don't remember what decision path led us to deciding that our first region in South America would be in Brazil, but that region's been there for 12 years now, and so it's a bit of a head start. There's a lot of different factors when we decide to put a region. Is basically the of course the business opportunity, but the maturity of the market. There's a lot of factors of working with local governments and national governments. And many times Andy Jassy has said that, and he has this famous phrase. He always says, "In the fullness of time." He said, "In the fullness of time, there'll likely be an AWS region in just about every country." So I don't know if I will have been retired by the time we have one in like the Arctic or Antarctic or something like that. But you can see the pattern is clear from the original one region that we launched with back in 2006 to now. I think we're at 31 regions plus additional ones like the GovCloud regions and so forth.
On that note, we just have Corrado, I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly, hoping that there's going to be a Lima local zone starting soon.
I actually think Corrado was from the university, actually, if that's the same person I'm talking about. Yes, I actually have a message from him from one of his colleagues, that I need to respond to. So yes.
Well, thank you everyone who's watching. Thank you for the participation in the chat. If you haven't left a comment, leave a comment with where you're coming from. It's such neat to have a much more global audience on this live stream. So really enjoy it. Please keep the comments coming in. And Marcos, what's the latency of the local zones? Have you kind of examined the different latencies across the local zones?
No, actually, I chat with some of the people there. They want to try more services in the local zones here because they have seen the good things about the giving all the services locally, especially for example for databases and that kind of stuff. So they may more open to try again. They're open to try new things, and this is one of the things they want to try.
One of the things that I always love about traveling and meeting customers is you get feedback that you wouldn't have ever gotten otherwise. And one of the pieces of feedback I got repeatedly was that the Spanish translations of our English language AWS documentation, there's still room to do better. And I need to actually, I've already worked with our team to see what we can do there. There's apparently been some inconsistency of do they translate the name of the service or not? And that apparently leads to more confusion than help. And everybody I talked to said, leave the names of the services and of the essential parts of AWS in English, because everybody knows those. And those terms are going to show up on certification exams and study guides. And so being able to have those as consistent names is probably better than having a fully translated document. And I heard of a couple examples of less than perfect translations, and I'm trying really hard to get our team to do better there.
Yeah, this is one of the feedbacks as well when I was chatting with people about Graviton, because one of the things they mentioned was we need more content focused on Spanish for Graviton. So I'm working right now on that with Guillermo, Luis, about they create a Dev2 channel only for AWS content and Spanish. So this is one of the main feedback I get, because many of them knew about Graviton, but they don't want to try because they don't want to things production. But that's one of the issues I found there.
It was actually quite revealing to hear that there's a real hunger for additional documentation and content of any kind. Documentation, blog posts, videos, how-tos in Spanish. I think there's a audience that's very hungry for all of that.
That's really, really interesting. I have a follow-up question. So every now and then you come across a technology wave or a platform where it basically levels the playing field. It doesn't matter that there's another region or another country that's been doing technology for 20, 30, 40 years. But the new wave, which is right now that seems to be AI, it basically becomes a level playing field globally. And so what's the excitement? What's the fascinating stuff that's happening around AI in the region?
So my presentation actually focused on generative AI, and it was actually fun that my presentations in Peru and Chile were only different by a week, but in the middle of that week, we had launched Bedrock in production form. Right. And so I was able to actually share a few more details the second weekend than I was the first. It seemed to me that a lot of the people I talked to had a really good understanding of what it was and what it was good for. There was a lot of talk of like interesting problems to be solved. It took me a few seconds to figure out that they call it IA instead of AI. It's intelligence artificial, but they pronounce IA. And so it took me just a few seconds to pick that out and understand. My Spanish is incredibly poor, despite having heard my wife and her family speak it for well over 40 years at this point. But as soon as I figured out that that was actually AI, I was able to at least follow the conversations along. And this is definitely a leveling event where everybody really has access to the same services and models and a lot of the same educational opportunities, regardless of where they happen to be. Connectivity doesn't seem to be the challenge that it once was. I remember decades ago when we first went to Peru that not everybody actually had a wired phone in their home because the phone exchanges were 5-digit. The whole phone number is really 5 digits long. And so the stories I heard was that it took years and years and years after you asked for a phone in your house for them to actually wire your neighborhood. And now everybody had good high quality iPhones and Androids, and everybody seemed connected. I felt well connected throughout the whole city. My phone seemed like it was on 4G most of the time. And you know, when any downtime, I always felt very, very well connected. So that connectivity is for sure a prerequisite to doing a lot of these other kinds of activities, and it certainly seemed to be there.
Oh, that's
telecom communications companies, they are very always there investing right now. So right now, for example, here in my house, we have fiber. So some 2 years ago, we don't have it. So they are always investing in all this. Love to see that. From my guest perspective about the general AI, I was in 2 talks, and you can see the excitement of the people learn about this. For example, I was in the Jenny Vega. Jenny Vega is a Peruvian, which is Amazonian as well. She's based in London. When she entered to the room, he was shocked because there are so many people. Yeah. A very diverse group of people because there are so many people. There's 2 PhDs seated there. As Jeff said, I have so many students for the university as well. So very diverse group of people there. So this is one of the things I most enjoy about the event.
It absolutely was. There was no single demographic that dominated the audience. It was everybody from students to early, mid-career, late career, people who had been doing something else for a decade or two and then decided to switch. And it was that probably it felt more diverse than a lot of other user group events I've been to in other places.
Oh, that's really neat. You're talking about the telecommunication infrastructure, which is kind of a prerequisite for all of this stuff to happen. I wanted to validate this observation that I've had. Of all my travels to the US, I feel like the US has lagged behind, even though it was one of the first to actually get a lot of the, telecommunication infrastructure going, and it kind of led to a lot of the, initial growth in technology, especially within the US subcontinent. When it comes to a lot of the newer countries that have adopted this kind of new infrastructure very late, you actually find that they are far ahead, both in terms of affordability as well as the quality of the infrastructure that they now have compared to the US and some of the other places. Like, every time I'm shocked as to how expensive, just getting a mobile phone with a data connection for a month is in the US. I think the minimum you can do is something like $40 or $50 for a month if you were traveling and you came in. And when I compare that to, a whole lot of other places, even in places like Africa and, the Middle East and in the subcontinent in Southeast Asia, it's a fraction of that cost.
Ooh.
And yet incredible quality. Like, everyone is now on 5G. Everyone, has amazing speeds. You can buy a ton of data for nearly nothing. And even though the demographics seemingly don't support it, but it just works. It's just newer to or they were late adopters, but that allowed them to, not have to invest crazy amounts of money right up front. They just adopted the latest and best technology whenever they did.
Well, I guess thinking about when I lived in Australia, right, they had an old copper network that they were then trying to bootstrap into a hybrid copper fiber thing called the NBN, and that led to effectively disappointment and somewhat slower speeds, because they had fiber backhaul, but then copper tried to piggyback on the existing copper lines from the neighborhood junctions over to the actual households, and that the performance of that was never good enough. So being able to just jump over that and say, okay, you've got 5G, you've got basically gigabit over the air, and then fiber to the premises like you've got, Marcos. That's phenomenal.
That's the hardware version of don't patch bad code, rewrite it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, for sure.
The patch always seems cheaper, and in the end, you just realize why you should have just ripped it down and started fresh.
No, for sure. Well, another thing I wanted to ask about. So, Dad, you mentioned certifications, and also Marcos. I was doing a little bit of research on both Peru and Chile, and I guess Chile had made their universities free about 8 years ago. I guess taxpayer funded, taxpayer supported 8 years ago. Is it similar in Peru? What's the I know that Peru has a really good heritage, especially with engineering universities. But is that traditional engineering? Are they focused on tech as well? And what's the accessibility of that?
No, actually, here there is a mix, because there are some public universities, but there are some private as well. For example, for the Pontificia Católica of Peru, where the event is a private university. But in terms of the skills and the people you see from this university, they are very, very, very good. Because I have the chance to work with some of them, so many different universities. They are very, very good professionals. Again, one thing that you see from Peruvians, they are, especially the new wave of professionals. They love to learn. They keep learning. So I know that Jeff mentioned that, because there are so many people, for example, interested not only in their certifications, they are very interested to learn the real experience with the services. So There are a lot of workshops, a lot of learning courses here in the country. Actually, I have 2 friends. They have 2 different companies focused only in the trying to teach people about data engineer, cloud. They are very packed when you see the courses. So there are many people, very good universities, but they don't want to stay there. They want to keep learning all that.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Like you said, there's that combination. There's universities. There's public and private. There's certification. There's all sorts of things. There's startups that are attacking this issue. That's really neat to hear that there's just this wide variety of opportunities for upskilling. And a lot of my, as much as college was helpful, the learning on the job with certifications, with practical things that you can do that are immediately applicable to what you're doing. That's been one of the most useful things. I wanted to put on the screen, I know we're running out of time, the AWS Chile event. We talked about Peru. I wanted to put this on the screen. This is a pretty cool, the AWS Community Day Chile.
That was a panoramic picture that I took. Did I take that? No, actually,
you're in it.
I took one similar to that. Oh, there I am. Yes, the organizers took that one.
That
was a really neat indication of how people were there from multiple different countries and proudly showing their national flags. That was held on the campus of the Universidad Tecnológica de Chile, INACAP, is how it's described. A wonderful university. They focus on, I think we call it practical education, and they gave me a really awesome tour of the campus and some of the labs, and was able to also meet some of their students, got to go through the library. They also had a deep racer track set up, but I also got to talk to several of the leaders and administrators, and it was really like awesome to hear their commitment to putting together a great cloud curriculum and to just like giving students great opportunities and helping to like raise the water for everybody to make things better.
Awesome. All right, I know you've got a bit of a time pressure. There we go.
Can I just bring up one question here? So this is Juan who basically asks this question. JP from Bogota. I've been part-time volunteer, so my question for all the speakers: what do you recommend to teach the new engineer generation, different from cloud fundamentals?
Oh, wow. So great question. I always like to just encourage people, and this is my just kind of background as a content creator coming through, but it's after you put that energy into learning something, tell other people about it. Don't keep that knowledge to yourself. Just say, hey, here's who I am and here's where I started. Here's this little learning journey I went on. Here's something I learned. Here's something I did. Here's a bit of code. Here's some things that worked well. Here's some things that didn't work well. And just that little extra effort to start being a content creator, I think can really pay off. It's going to help you to be, you're going to want to be the expert because you're saying, I'm going to claim to know something about this. So you're going to study a little bit harder, but then you're going to have that little evidence you've created, especially at the point when you are maybe applying to your first or second job. And they say, who are you and what'd you do? You can say, well, here's my job and I did this, but my personal passion for this topic was so high that I also created all this other great stuff in my own personal time. And that is always a positive indicator when you're sitting there about to get hired for a new job.
And
great, Mark. Sorry, go ahead. Steve.
Well, I like how you can leverage something you're already doing. It's like, for example, there's a project that I was talking to Darko about, and it's a really interesting project. And we said, hey, let's do a live stream. And we already wanted to do the project, but now, okay, do it live, and it keeps you more focused. You have an artifact that exists forever. And you have that pressure of, wow, I'm on camera. I'm not going to take a 20-minute news break, or it keeps you focused on what you're doing, and it's really fun. You get people. Ideally, you have some a random comment. Why don't you try it this way? And it really is engaging.
Yeah, it's engaging, but it also shows others that what they think they might be able to do, they actually can do. And I think that's always important.
Yeah. Marcos, your
In my
advice?
case, I am the same boat from Jeff as well, because that's why I started the newsletter, because I wanted to learn more about it. I want to try new things. People are really surprised about the things they can learn when they write about it. Because want to solve, for example, a particular problem, and you write about that particular problem, how do you solve it? You can learn even more just writing that. So have the courage to share, because many of us are very they don't want to share. They don't want to share in public, but actually that's a good thing, because you have to put that barrier outside, and of course write about this. Share the people, because when you share your knowledge, you new more people to learn more of that particular service, to check with all the peers about this. So learn something, write about it, and share it. That's my best advice.
Yep, exactly. All right, I'm going to zip off in a second. I've got another call coming up. This has been super, super fun.
Thank you so much, Jeff, for being over here. And always a delight to have you on the show. we learn a ton.
Marcos, good to see you again. Raul, of course. And Stephen, I will see you tonight.
Yep. Thanks.
All right.
We're going to have a big Peruvian meal.
Of course.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Great.
Marcos, I have a few more minutes with you. Wanted to catch up with what's new in the Graviton world.
Angelo, after our conversation, there are a lot of new things in the Graviton world. For example, not only for the new services, basically the same. For example, the CG, the C7G, the HPC instances for all this. There are more regions right now, because one of the things that people always mention when I write with them. So I want to try this, but it's not available in my region. So this is always good to share that. Right now, you can try the C7G into new, for example, Stockholm, Cape Town, and all these regions. So that's one of the things that I want to share about it.
Okay, so the Graviton has been spreading in terms of more available in more and more regions. It's interesting to think, right, that there's literally a physical constraint to AWS having these chips made, attaching them to the Nitros, sending them out to the different availability zones, because in a region they have to get to multiple AZs. And then so the Gravitons have become more and more geographically dispersed. What do you think is the percentage of regions that have Graviton 3s available?
That's a very good question.
Well, sorry, maybe what we should do. We should do a little hackathon where we put together. We can query the AWS service and put together like a Graviton heat map. That'd be a fun little artifact to have existing.
Yeah, that would be very, very fun, because I think this is a question that have a lot of people as well. But this is a very good question to answer with a heat map.
Okay, cool. Well, let's do that. Let's do a live stream sometime to be true to our own word as learning by teaching, and do a hackathon where we can query the AWS regions and look at where is Graviton available. We can have this auto updating. That could be pretty neat, and we can even post some of the links to the what's new. Okay, let's make this a project. We could do it on one of our hackathon shows. I think that could be a fun thing to do.
Awesome. Keep me posted.
We will do. And then you said managed services, more and more managed services supporting Graviton.
Yeah. For example, this is a very interesting take for the event as well, because there are so many people interested in AKS. When I share that you can actually use AKS with Graviton as well, people were shocked. You have you can actually create multiple architecture images for not only for Graviton, for x87, 86 as well. People didn't know that, because we want to make a better job promoting all this. The same for the RDS, the same thing open search as well. you can actually start using the managed services and Graviton. Even you have to know that Graviton is out there. It's not only for the performance, only for the cost as well. Because in some cases you have 20% of a saving, but in some cases you have even more, right? You have to know the exact CPU that you're using, but you will see the benefits in the long term.
Completely agree.
It's really neat to see that ARM support just becoming more and more and more widespread. I remember initially looking when Docker started with multi-architecture ARM support, and then I'm thinking about whenever I think about EKS, I think about how I put this on screen. This is a kind of a cool project. Jeff Geerling's Raspberry Pi Kubernetes clusters that he's made famous, especially with the compute module boards. But now you can go from here to actual production grade ARM-based clusters. I'll put the link to this. Yeah, you can go to production grade ARM-based clusters that can, they said, run on a lot less power, a lot less expense, a lot less heating. That's really neat to think about.
My only claim to fame is that my Raspberry Pi cluster that's right there has one more card over Jeff Geerling's setup over there. But he's got the four, what are they called? They're called the
compute modules.
The compute module 4s doing that, and they've just been completely unavailable for I don't know how long. And he just announced Raspberry Pi 5 is now out, so that should be interesting.
Yeah. Those have great reviews.
There is a post from Jason Andrews from ARM, where they have a very good post about the multi-architecture Docker images for x87 ARM. I think it's in Dev 2. I will share the link if you want to later.
Oh yeah,
this is a very good post for this.
Putting that in the chat here.
Mm-hmm.
And linked it. There we go. Cool. I'll put that on screen for a moment. Okay. Here is the Dev 2 AWS Espanol. Okay, this is another great resource to have for. So Dev.2 is the AWS portal for community builders, other content creators who are focused on AWS to put things. And this is their Spanish section.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, so the one we're looking for is
one we're looking for is in the English version.
Oh, okay, got it. Was Jason Andrews, you said?
Jason Andrews. Yeah, that one. The second one.
The second one.
Oh, here we go.
The second one. That one.
Cool. Okay.
That's a very, very, very good post too. If you want to try this with multi-architecture processors, images. So this is a very good resource.
Awesome. So the idea with Docker multi-architecture is that you can have the same script which says Docker pull, my app and then my tag, and then have that work on both x86 and ARM64. So you can ideally use the exact same script and switch architectures seamlessly.
Yep. Yeah. This is always one of the resources I always share with people trying to do this, because this is very good way of explaining all the steps there.
Awesome.
All right. Well, we've put some links to your newsletter. Congrats again on reaching number 57. It's been a really valuable resource for us. There's so much to keep on top of, so we really appreciate the high level view of everything that's going on in the Graviton universe. So thank you for doing that.
Yep. And also, Marcos, thank you for the shout out to us. A lot of the work that you've been doing, and with the shout out to us, it keeps us motivated. It keeps us doing this week after week as well. And I hope we reciprocate the same way with you. This is an amazing community that we feel very privileged to be a part of, and just helping each other out like that to keep ourselves motivated to help the community is a lot of fun. So thank you for all your contributions.
Yeah, thanks to you, because your blog is one of the more links resources in the newsletter, because many people are very interested on the things that you are doing in the blog. So you have a very, very good pack of resources there. So thank you for that.
Most welcome.
And Marcos, I think you're getting some thank yous from the audience. And then to our audience, thank you for being here. Thank you for participating, answering questions. We really, really appreciate it. All right. Well, I think it's time for us to wrap up, but we will be here on Friday with part 2 of our generative AI hackathon, turning the AWS Made Easy transcripts into our Raul cost optimization advice bot. And Marcos, please join us in a future hackathon where we're going to make a Graviton heat map, and maybe we can use Code Whisperer to show how easy it is to tie all this stuff together.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thank
Great.
you. And thanks to our audience. Have a nice afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Some tools just find AWS cost savings and make you do all the work. Visualizing cost opportunities is great, but that's not enough. CloudFix, on the other hand, actually delivers those savings for you. And you don't need to worry, because CloudFix is AWS recommended and easy to use. It's the only tool that fixes cost-saving opportunities, and not just finds. It's the easiest way to save money on AWS. It's all 100% automatic and risk-free. And the best part of all, it works non-stop. Stop overspending on AWS and click on the button to start saving now.